All right, writing as inquiry. These are some of the key takeaways that I'd like you to consider as you start reading through the textbook and you start working on your assignment. First is writing isn't about sharing what you know. It's about asking questions and finding out what you don't know. Especially with research writing, what's most important is that you approach the research process and the drafting process with an open mind and a lot of willingness to dig. And it's good to know where you stand on a topic before you write. And allow yourself to have the opportunity to be objective as you begin researching. Sometimes we find that research actually supports our predispositions and beliefs. Sometimes we find that research further complicates things we thought we once knew. And other times we find that research actually reveals more important ways to think about our topic than we previously thought about them before. So it's important not to let what you think you already know get in the way of what you will discover. Now, some of you are writing about very, very important topics. Um, the civil rights movement is one of them that I've found several of you are writing about. And it's going to be very easy to make that, to reinforce the relevancy of those topics in our society today. And it's going to be really important to communicate the relevancy of those topics to the reader because it's kind of common sense. It's very, very important. But some of you are writing about things that the reader might need to be convinced of the importance of. So, for example, when I write about Old English literature or Old English poetry, one of the things I have to do pretty upfront is discuss with the reader, why is this important? Why are we still talking about this centuries after it's been written? And why do people take time or dedicate their lives to studying this? And so I have to kind of get those things out of the way and establish the relevancy with the reader before the reader will listen to anything I've found. So the topic may be important to you. The topic might be interesting to you, and it's up to us to not just let that be sufficient. It's up to us to communicate that with the reader, and don't let anything that you have previously thought about the topic get in the way of what you're going to discover about the topic, because that's the main thing, right? When in researching, is we want to discover. We're taking time to discover more things about the topic. All right, so we also need to understand that we are not the only people researching these topics. There are hundreds of other scholars, academics, professionals, and students thinking and writing about these topics in various ways. So when we begin our research process, we are diving into conversations that have already been going on before we've even started thinking about them. So it's extremely important to listen first to the conversations that are already happening in the field and spend some time trying to understand what's being said and who's saying those things about your topic before you chime in with your thoughts on the topic and the research that you found to back up your own thoughts on the topic. A neat little scenario that we do in English 100E and English 101 is talking about entering the conversation like entering a dinner party late. So say you've been invited to a dinner party and you get there about 30 minutes late because like you caught the wrong bus or the tube was late getting to the station. So you arrive and you walk in the doors and there is a very heated discussion going on. Sides have been chosen. There's like a bunch of people over here and then there's a bunch of people over here on this side, and they're kind of arguing back and forth about a topic. And then somebody looks at you and goes, what do you think? Well, which side are you on? What do you think? and you're like, I don't even know I don't even know what you guys are talking about. And so you have to hear both sides first before you can give your side and your opinion on the subject at hand. It's the same thing with what you're doing here. You've got to make sure that you are researching all sides to this topic. You're looking at every evidence, or all of the evidence of what's being presented about the topic. So if you're talking about the destruction level of Hurricane Camille, and you're talking about how much money is being lost in communities that are being hit by hurricanes such as Camille, and being hit by them very often, you're going to need to look at both sides of research for that. So you're going to need to look at research that talks about how devastating these hurricanes are, and then you're going to need to look at research that might present maybe it's not as bad as we think. And you're going to need to hold both of those things in your mind before you can decide, where do I stand on this and why do I stand there? So that's a really important part of research, and that's sort of what this inquiry starts making you think about is what's going on first, what's already been said, where do I stand on that, despite what I've already believed or what I think I already know about the topic. And then I need you to understand that sometimes the questions we have about the topics, most likely they won't be answered simply. In fact, if you can answer some of your questions about your topic very simply or with a yes or no, then chances are your question isn't really researchable. Research delves into the depths of topics, and most topics, like life, has a lot of complications to it. For instance, going back to my example of Hurricane Camille, you need to begin to think about questions that can't be simply answered with like a total or a yes or no straightforward fact. So there's a difference between facts and then between concepts that aren't easily explained by numbers or by opinions. What can't be easily explained is going to be where you spend a lot of your time in research and in communicating your thoughts on your topic. So if we want to talk about how much damage was done in Camille, we can ask that question, but we also need to ask, well, who's paying for the damage? Why are they paying for it? How does it affect the poverty level in those areas? And then don't be afraid to dive into the nasty, gritty details of it. A lot of times we find things that we don't want to know. A lot of times we find things that are very shocking, that are surprising to us because we're digging for the answers, right? And it's important to know that this is where your research will start to come into a life of its own. So a lot of times when I'm researching, I'll start out with, okay, this is what I'm researching, this is what I think I'm going to find, and then I end up way over here because that's just where the trail led, and I have to completely revamp what I thought I was looking for, or what I thought I was going to find, or what I thought about the topic, because turns out it just wasn't true. So it's okay if that happens to you. And I actually want you to be prepared for that to happen to you, because that is why we research. That's my son snoring, sorry. Let's see. So yeah, so we're asking the big questions. We're asking the questions that people spend decades talking about, conversating about, sharing beliefs and opinions, and finding more data and using more experiences to support. And those are the questions that are asked for the sake of our society, right? And that leads us into our last point that I wanted to share with you. You've all chosen a topic that was prompted by an old item that you found in the archives. So now what I want you to start thinking about doing is bridging the gap between the past and the present. So bridging the gap between your past item and the topic, and how you sort of got to thinking about what you're thinking about. And now, how does that affect us today in our society, in the present day, September the whatever day it is, I don't even know. How does it affect me today? How does it affect others today? How does it affect society today? What what ways can you make this topic relevant for your readers? What as humanity do we still need to work on? Why is this an important topic to talk about? What happens if no one talks about this? What happens if no one takes action on this? Is what happens if this just gets brushed under the rug and we don't think about it? That's sort of going to frame how you start accessing the databases, how you start writing about your topic. And hopefully it will help generate some keywords as you begin your database search. So I'm going to show my screen now to the Writing as Inquiry assignment. So hopefully you've read the textbook already. I've kind of expounded upon what it had to say. And this assignment is going to ask you those questions. So there's 12 of them. You only have to answer 5. So I want you to try and answer each question in light of your chosen topic. Remember, you only have to choose to answer 5 of them. A track, you're going to choose to answer 7. You can answer any of them, but choose the ones you answer wisely and answer thoughtfully, because your answer to these questions can often be dwindled down to act as keywords that you can plug in as you begin searching through academic journals and archives to build your proposal and your annotated bib in the following weeks. And also spend time thinking about which ones are most helpful to your topic. So if I'm writing about an Old English poem, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time talking about the expectations, just as an example. Cause and effect of an Old English poem really isn't going to give me a lot of extra help in what I research, but I can talk about what an Old English poem is, how it's different from poetry today. I can talk about what it can be compared with. I can talk about how it's analyzed. I can talk about how it's interpreted. And I can talk about my own feelings about it and how I see it impact readers that are still reading Old English today. So, for example, there are going to be questions that probably won't give you a lot of help for your topic. So answer the questions that do. If you need any clarification on some of these questions, they're very general, so you will have to spend some time applying them to your own topic. But if you need help doing that, I'm an email away, and I'll help you as best as I can. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the modules.